Just this past summer in 2024, a powerful student-led uprising, the Monsoon Revolution, swept through Bangladesh and toppled a government that had been in power for 15 years. But after a political storm like that, what comes next is this really fragile calm. So today we're going to dive into what the future holds for the nation and ask the big question: can this revolution actually deliver on its promise of a new dawn?
Pi, leave me, I'm dying. I want you to just let those words sink in for a second. Those were the last words of a young protester named Tam. He'd been shot from behind while trying to run away from the police. His friend was holding him as he bled out right there on the street. This one absolutely heartbreaking moment, it just captures the life and death stakes of the revolution that was about to change everything. The speed of it all, it was just breathtaking. What started as student protests in July just exploded over 3 short weeks. It turned into a nationwide movement that we now know as the Monsoon Revolution. This was a truly historic moment, fueled by years and years of frustration that had been simmering just below the surface. And it finally boiled over.
And when I say it was fast, I mean really fast. On July 15th, security forces opened fire on students. Just over a week later, key student leaders were literally abducted off the streets. By August 4th, you had massive crowds marching on the prime minister's home. And then, just one day later, she was gone. Fled the country. Her entire government collapsed, just like that. But to really get why this happened, you have to look deeper. This revolution wasn't just sparked by one single event. No, it was the culmination of 15 years of anger, building up against these systemic human rights abuses under Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's rule. The pressure had been building for so long, and it was about to hit a breaking point.
The numbers here are just staggering. During the Hasina government's 15 years, human rights groups estimate that law enforcement carried out nearly 2,000 extrajudicial killings. And look, these weren't isolated incidents. This was a pattern, and it felt like it was state-sanctioned violence.
And beyond the killings, there was something else, something even more sinister. A new commission of inquiry has already documented over 1,600 cases of what are called enforced disappearances. Some estimates suggest the real number could be over 3,500. Just think about that. People were snatched off the streets and their families were left in this agonizing limbo, sometimes for years, with no idea if their loved one was alive or dead. To understand the human cost of this, just listen to the words of Mir Ahmad bin Qasim. He was held completely cut off from the world for 8 years. He described being blindfolded and handcuffed 24/7, hearing the screams of other people being tortured. He called it a worse-than-death experience. So, with the old regime gone, a new interim government steps into the void, and it's carrying the hopes of an entire nation. They promise not just a change of faces, but real, profound, systemic change for all of Bangladesh. And the person leading the charge? Well, it's a name you might actually recognize, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, Muhammad Yunus. His appointment was a huge signal, both to the world and to the people of Bangladesh, that this government was going to be different, that it was focused on rebuilding trust. So, what was their game plan? They laid out a really clear 3-step mission. First, fix the country's broken institutions. We're talking everything from the courts to the police. Second, create reform commissions to figure out how to do that. And the ultimate goal, number 3, was to pave the way for free and fair elections, to finally bring back democracy. And they didn't waste any time. On September 12th, they set up 6 different commissions to tackle the big stuff: the justice system, the police, even the Constitution itself. This was supposed to be the blueprint for a whole new Bangladesh. Okay, so everything sounds pretty hopeful so far, right? Well, this is where the story takes a really worrying turn. Because despite all the promises of reform, a disturbingly familiar pattern of abuse is starting to pop up again. And the question on everyone's mind is the cycle just repeating itself? It's like they're using the same old playbook, but they've just switched out who they're targeting. Under the old government, it was the critics and political opponents who were in the crosshairs. Now, under this new interim government, the focus has shifted. Now it's people who are seen as supporters of the former ruling party, the Awami League. And the scale of this new wave of arrests is just massive. In just the first 2 months of this new government, police filed over 1,000 cases against tens of thousands of people. And because the vast majority are former Awami League members, it fuels this fear that this is less about justice and a lot more about political payback. And of course, it's ordinary, innocent people who are getting caught in the middle. Just take the story of Amzad Hossain. He's a healthcare worker who was shocked to find out he was accused of murdering a protester he was actually trying to save. He's in hiding now, terrified because he says, if I go to the police station to prove my innocence, they will arrest me immediately before even hearing me. So this brings us to the most critical question of all. How can Bangladesh break this devastating cycle of political revenge and actually build a stable future? Well, human rights organizations have laid out a pretty clear roadmap.
The recommendations are direct and they're huge. First, get rid of the notorious Rapid Action Battalion, a unit that's basically been an instrument of state terror. Second, repeal any laws that give public officials immunity. Nobody should be above the law. Third, make sure security forces are tried in civilian courts, not military ones. Fourth, stop this practice of filing mass cases against unknown people, which is just a tactic for random arrests. And finally, create independent civilian oversight so the people have a real check on police power. When you boil it all down, the core idea behind all of these reforms is actually pretty simple. But for Bangladesh, it's revolutionary. The goal is to build institutions where loyalty is to the rule of law, not to whichever political party happens to be in charge. It's about taking the politics out of justice and security, once and for all.
And so this is the question that just hangs over the entire nation's future. The Monsoon Revolution was this incredibly powerful demand for change. But the real test, that's just beginning. Can Bangladesh seize this moment to finally break its cycle of violence and build a democracy that actually lasts? The future is still unwritten.
Subscribe now for more conflict breakdowns.